Hey everyone, it's Dr. Julie coming to you with another Dr. Julie nudge of encouragement. I have been hearing so much from our wonderful Circle of Hope community members that they are now wonderfully aware of when they get emotionally triggered and have the compulsion to go into binge eating behavior. And they're working super, super hard on breaking kind of that seemingly automatic pilot eating. But they're having a hard time, which is perfectly, perfectly normal. And they asked me to do a video on how to develop some techniques or some tricks and some skills to be able to help them in between that really difficult period between getting triggered and having an awareness of what's going on, but still not being able to break that compulsion to where it helps them to not go into the binge eating behavior. So I thought, you know what, let me incorporate this into my Dr. Julie Nudge of Encouragement weekly videos. And so I thought that I would do that for you today. So let's talk about kind of the need to proactively prepare for the next time that you get emotionally triggered, because you can have the best intentions and you can be working really, really hard on developing new skills. But once that emotion gets activated, it's like this tsunami that kind of comes and takes over. And when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to stop and think and kind of put things in place for yourself to be able to support yourself through it emotionally so that it does not end up in going into binge eating behavior. So what I tell my clients and what I want to encourage you to do is this. First of all, you should always have a space in your home that is dedicated to kind of yourself and kind of a place that you're going to do some of these emotional skill activities. I like to think about it as like kind of a self-growth corner, or like a kind of emotionally nurturing space where it's there all the time and it's got all of your tools to be able to work on things for you to work through kind of emotions through your psychological growth process. So that might be like a corner in a safe room in your home. What you're seeing is my office kind of den. That is the space that I like to do all of my kind of psychological work and where I usually go to write or to nurture myself. For other people, it might be a bedroom, but some place that you can have that's private. You're not going to get interrupted, and you can leave materials out that are just available to you when you might need. Okay, so I broke down kind of our tools into three sections of the toolbox, and there's no judgment on which section is better. I tend to think that there's different purposes and needs that get fulfilled with each of these sections. And, oftentimes, one section is going to work better than another, depending on where you're at in your recovery process, and or sometimes how big the emotion, the trigger, or the event is that gets activated. So don't be judgmental. Know that all of these are complementary, and what really is important is that it just meets the need of that particular time and space that you're in when your emotions get activated. Okay, so there's three sections, and I'll name them first, and then I'll go into more detail within each one. When I think about ways to kind of step in and have tools and skills for yourself, I think of one section being tools and skills to provide yourself with comfort and self-soothing. The next section is going to be healthy distraction. And the last section is going to be for exploration and release of emotions that are more directed towards actually working through kind of the emotional process to help you to clean out that emotion, maybe resolve some issues and or some feelings, and or to increase your awareness of what's going on for you. So we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute, okay? So the first section, comfort. So I'm going to tell you some of my favorites. Certainly play around with it. The only thing that matters is that these are comforting things to you. When I think about kind of an emotion that comes over that needs to be, kind of responded to with that sense of comforting and self-soothing, it might be sadness, it might be grief or loss. It might be sometimes when we just kind of feel melancholy or just kind of down and we just need to be comforted. Okay. Well, my favorite thing is to have a nice, um, fuzzy, comforting blanket. And my family knows that this is my favorite one. It's fleece and it's just, kind of a blanket that oftentimes I might like sit down in a chair or I might lay on the couch and I literally will wrap myself up in this blanket. I might read a book. I might grab a cup of tea, which is going to be the next thing that I'm going to recommend. So some beverage that feels nice and comforting. Oftentimes when you're used to using food, it's nice to have something that's oral, but not anything that's going to be related to like a excessive maladaptive behavior. So chamomile tea is my favorite. I've also been known to have a wine glass with like seltzer and lemon or lime that just feels like nurturing and comforting. Okay, so a blanket to wrap yourself up with, something warm and nurturing to drink, kind of to comfort yourself. Sometimes candles are nice. Sometimes nice plain music is something that feels really comforting. I've also been known to watch kind of a trashy TV show that just is like mindless, but I enjoy, or kind of a magazine that just has that kind of I'm relaxed, I'm comfortable, I'm safe, everything is fine space. Okay. So have those things available to you in your section of your home so that you can go and just kind of comfort and nurture yourself if you're having a difficult emotion. Okay. The second section is going to be distraction. And we talk a lot about kind of distress tolerance and DBT skills. This is going to be for the sole purpose of keeping yourself busy and or kind of in a healthy way removed or disconnected from the emotional trigger. Okay. So that you don't go into some automatic unhealthy behavior like binge eating or binge drinking or binging and purging behavior. So it's literally focusing on something else that takes up your time, attention, so that you can wait for that kind of emotional wave or that emotional tsunami to pass, where you're a little bit more calmer, and then you can step in with healthy control. Okay. So with distraction, oftentimes that might be getting some crayons. And a lot of my clients love going to like Barnes and Noble, and there's actually these themed coloring books. So you can just focus on them. I mean, just listen to some music, color, just kind of allow yourself to escape into that distracting behavior. Okay. Another distraction might be doing a puzzle. Okay. So in that section of your house, you might have a nice 500 or 1,000 piece puzzle and maybe put some nice music on and just focus on those puzzle pieces as a distraction. Okay. Another thing that you might do is read a book. And sometimes it's hard to focus on anything super intellectual or intense or meaningful. So have something, like this would be another time that you could have a magazine that you enjoy reading. I like reading autobiographies or biographies because it's not something I have to like retain. It's not something that I have to think about. I don't have to apply it to my own life, like if it's a self-help book, but just something that's really like I can enter into somebody else's reality as opposed to being connected to your reality if something's happened and you've been triggered. Okay. So we've got puzzles, we've got books, and we've got coloring. Think about some other ways that you can distract yourself if and when you get triggered. Okay. The last section that is actually my favorite, of course, as a therapist, but also know that this is usually the most difficult for people because it takes a level of comfort with your emotions. It takes a level of intentionality that might not be there for you at the beginning of your recovery process. And this section is exploring and or releasing the emotion that gets triggered. Okay, so we know that what we want to do is we want to be able to identify an emotion. We want to really welcome it. We want to learn about it. We want to then do something with that emotion to both release it and then to work it through psychologically. Okay, there's been some other videos that I've done related to that. I'll just go into some brief things right now. So the first thing that I love is that wonderful scribble drawing exercise. Again, there's a video that I recently did that really it's a way of releasing strong emotions. It's where you use, again, the thick crayons, the drawing paper, and you just kind of close your eyes, connect to the energy of the emotion and just let it out, okay, in the form of scribbling. And then you couple it when you're done with the scribbling with doing some handwriting, some just kind of writing of what the words are, the feelings are, the phrases, your process. And so it's a way of getting the energy of the emotion out. It's then putting some words and meaning to the energy and then writing, doing something metaphorically that actually helps your psyche to shift out of it as it processes through whatever it is that's bothering you. So go back and look at that video. It's on our YouTube channel, okay? The other thing that is helpful, you're probably more familiar with this, is journaling. Okay, so have your journal ready. It should be stream of consciousness journaling. So just letting yourself without judgment sit down and just download whatever it is. Like, I'm feeling so off, I don't know what's going on, I feel sick to my stomach, all I want to do is eat, and then just keep following it, following it, following it. Maybe something happens that you got offended by a friend, you feel bad about yourself, you feel like nothing ever is going to be right, you go into that place of despair. Just keep writing, 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 and that's going to be a way for your psyche to process through and to get to the other side of that emotion. Many times, if you can write it through, your psyche is naturally going to get to a place of more positive well-being. Maybe you're going to come up with some solutions. Maybe you're going to come up with, something that says, okay, so I felt really bad about this, but I've got this friend and they said something nice, or I felt really bad that I did this at work, but I like this about myself. Okay, so keep going through, going through, going through. I tell my clients, I want you to do stream of consciousness journaling, 3 to 5 pages. Okay, it takes 3 to 5 pages to get from the conscious thought process down to the subconscious processing and just kind of letting that information out. That's going to release it. It's going to actually identify some of what's going on for you, and it's going to help your psyche to shift out of it to a place of more positive regard. Okay. All right, and the last thing that I have in this section of exploration and identification would be art. Okay, so I have so many clients that, are creative, and we don't want to do this with like a set purpose, because you don't want to be like, I need to do this beautiful drawing of my anger or my sadness. Just kind of let yourself go into that right brain processing, and that means just picking up that sketchbook, maybe that charcoal, maybe that paint, and just allowing yourself to enter into the creative process, trusting that whatever comes out of it is exactly what your psyche needed to do. Okay. You can also do clay. I love being able to work with clay when a feeling gets activated, just the rubbing of the clay, the kneading of the clay, and then kind of putting the clay out into whatever kind of sculpture just needs to happen. Sometimes it's an image of something that's intentional. Oftentimes it's just colors and placement and just kind of getting the feeling out from inside of you and putting it out in an external way that actually releases it, gives you some of that relief and makes you feel better. And guess what? Your eating behavior is not going to be so activated when you get done with it. Okay? So we've got 3 sections: comfort, distraction, and exploration and release, that are really helpful to have all set up and ready to engage in if and when you get triggered emotionally, so that you can work through and dissipate that emotional charge so that it doesn't go automatically into that compulsive binge eating behavior. All right? Don't expect to do this perfectly. This is something that is going to be kind of try it and stumble through it, try it and stumble through it. You're going to have some times that are not going to be successful, but you're going to have other times when you go, oh my gosh, I was able to, channel this into these other behaviors. I lived through the trigger and the compulsion to overeat, and you're going to start building trust, faith, and confidence within yourself that you're going to be able to do other activities and to eventually fully recover. Okay, Dr. Julie giving you a hopefully helpful other nudge of encouragement. I look forward to seeing you in our upcoming videocast in our global virtual community, Circle of Hope. You take care, work hard, believe in yourself, and always believe in full and lasting recovery.